Very good evening, one and all. Welcome to the day 5 session of Entrepreneurship Development Program. So this session has been organized by ReferenceGlobe in collaboration with Askmentor. So we would, we'd like to thank Askmentor for coming forward and helping the students in this pandemic. So ReferenceGlobe is an online edutech company, and we provide various sophisticated solutions to universities, colleges, across India. So we have connect with more than 1,000 colleges across India, and we provide end-to-end solutions. So this is about ReferenceGlobe. Now I'd like to hand over the call to My Startup TV. They'll take over the session. Thank you.
Welcome to day 5 of Get Set Startup, Student Entrepreneurship Development Program organized by Askmentor in association with ReferenceGlobe. The strategic partners for this event are AML Service and Consultancy, Palnesto, Hackmania, and My Startup TV. For the benefit of all those who missed the first 4 days of the program, a short brief. On day 1, Rajesh Khosla, President and Chairman of AGI Glasspack, addressed the students and shared his thoughts about entrepreneurship. The mentor on day 1 was Ms. Urvashi Baid, Director of AML. She spoke about idea and ideation. On day 2, the two mentors were Captain Amaya Kochar, founder of Proforce, and Captain Rahul Rai, founder of Armor Heavy. They spoke about finding a co-founder and bootstrapping. On day 3, the mentor was Rajat Shahi, founder of Hackmania. He spoke about community building and social media. Day 4 was called off as there was a bad network in North India from where the mentor was going to join. Rishabh Harshan will talk about the importance of mentoring and bootstrapping on 10th August. Today's eminent mentors are Urvashi Baid and Arundhati Rao. They will be talking about how to prepare. Also, the guest for today is Shubham Mahajan, who is the founder of Cubic Online. Now I hand over to Ms. Urvashi.
Good evening, everyone. We are happy to connect with you on day 5 again. I invite my colleague, Ms. Arundhati Rao, to take us through pitch deck, and we both will take you through how to make a good pitch deck for the investors.
Thank you, Arundhati, for joining in, and Urvashi, thank you for joining in. To both of you, even before Arundhati starts off on how to make a pitch deck and what goes into it, for the benefit of students, why is there a need for pitch deck? Arundhati, do you want to take that on first before we start?
Good evening. I'm happy to be here this evening. And like you asked, a pitch deck essentially allows investors to get a peek into what is it that you're looking at, what is it that you're working with, and where is it that they are, they can give you assistance and aid in terms of finances, and what is the returns they get for the investment. So pitch deck gives them a brief of it. Of course, it is not the one and only thing that makes or breaks it, but it is the starting point. A good pitch deck gets you the subsequent meetings. That's the importance of a pitch deck.
So Urvashi, pitch deck, already Arundhati has spoken about, why there's a need for pitch deck. Now, typically, one would like to know, what does, how many slides, or how, usually you see it's a PPT. So how many, slide do you think should be there in a pitch deck?
Shorter the better, because see, when an investor is sitting on a pitch deck, the investor is generally looking at multiple pitch decks. So they don't have the patience to go through elaborate stories which are, not making any sense, or wherein you want to put your heart out. Investor does not have time for that. So it has to be short and crisp. Generally, investors will give their own set of questions that you answer these questions in this format. But if that is not provided, not more than 5 to 7 slides, your pitch deck should not exceed that.
Also, we also get at Askmentor, people keep sending in pitch decks, and what we get to see is they sometimes run into 20, 30 slides, and there's a lot of work. They do. It's sometimes it gives you a feel of it being a marriage card or something. Invitation card. A lot of designs, a lot of diagrams, a lot of flows. So is that all important? What is the as a investor? What are they looking at? Will they be impressed by your design that you put in a pitch
Again,
deck?
Major, the content is the king. If the content is not strong, your design or anything cannot help. And if you remember, I mentioned on day one, don't be self-obsessed with your idea and don't be self-obsessed with the pitch. What happens when people are preparing pitch? They just try to pour their heart out. We want to tell this, we want to tell that, and they forget the basic principle that what investor is wanting to look at, or what is that one thing that will get investor interested in their idea. And that is what we are here to throw light on. What is it that you should include and what is it that you should not worry about?
Okay, now before I hand over back to Arundhati, one quick question, last question from my end for now. Is it a good idea to randomly keep shooting your pitch deck to angel investors, VC firms, or should how do you do that? How is that process?
Okay, so see, these angel investors or VCs, they are not free people to keep looking at random mails. They are not free. Generally, these investors or VCs will open up some forums wherein they will invite for new ideas. When they will say, okay, now we are ready to put money in some new ideas, that is when they will open up some forums. One way of doing it is that. Another way of doing it is to connect with the investor through somebody, if that is possible. And when somebody can refer you, that is when investor will pay some attention. But then somebody has to be interested in your idea has to be good enough for somebody to refer you to the investor.
That is what organizations like Askmentor and AML Consulting, specialize in, or they have the connection.
Right. Yeah, that is what I was coming to. The third is, when you come across these consultants who enhance you, who help you make a good pitch, and then who connect you to the right investors. Because all the investors are not interested in all kind of ideas. They have their own criteria. Okay, if the idea is education based, then I will invest. Somebody will say if the idea is related to technology, then I will invest. So ML or Askmentor are those companies who have a fair idea of which investor is interested in what and what he or she is looking at. What is the kind of funds they can give to the market.
Perfect. So thank you, Urvashi, for that. Arundhati, I think now we all set for your presentation. So over to you.
Thank you. This is essentially a very brief thing which will go across for the next couple of minutes, I think about 10-15 minutes, to talk about how your pitch should be designed. Are the students with me? Anyone there? A yes or no, anything at all? A pitch deck essentially is for an investor, potential investor, to learn more about your business. It gets you the next meeting, like I mentioned earlier. And your funding is essentially a multi-step process. So a pitch deck does not directly translate into any kind of funding. It is a visual communication with information regarding your business, that is your products and services, your fundraising needs, key matrices like target market, financial goals, etc. The cover slide is the most important thing. So you've got to get the cover slide right. It sets the tone and pitch for the subsequent slides. Your text needs to be clear. Your images need to be sorted. You can't just take and paste anything. You need to know what you're talking about and be through it multiple number of times. So you need a lot of iterations that happen on your pitch deck. Another thing that's important is if you're sending your pitch deck out, there are two ways of doing it. Either you present your pitch deck or you send it out. If you're sending it out, the pitch deck needs to be your pitch deck last slide is your contact information. However, if you're presenting it and there's a fora, your contact information, it's a good idea to keep it on your first slide. The first slide should also include all your social media links if you have any. Any investor sitting and looking at your pitch deck is definitely interested in those. Your first slide should also have a tagline, whatever is the tagline for your entire business concept. The general statistics that talk about pitch deck says an average investor spends about 3 minutes 44 seconds per pitch deck. So that's the kind of time you have to get their attention. Either you get it or you don't. So you got to really, really work on the pitch deck. Next. Now, a pitch deck needs these 10 slides. The first would be your elevator pitch, then is the problem that you are looking to address, then is the solution you have identified, the market size, which is of tremendous importance to an investor. They'd like to see what kind of a market you're looking to capture. Your business model, which essentially says how are you generating your revenue out of your idea. The proprietary technology that you're going to be working with, whether you have any intellectual property rights there, have they been registered, have they not been registered, is it a model that is sustainable, has it been licensed or used, not licensed, all of those details are important. So it's not a good idea to work with a pirated version of any software for any pitch deck ever. Then the competition that you're looking at, it's very hard to believe that anybody has no competition. There's always a competition. So you must locate them and identify them on the slide. Regardless of how serious you take them or not, they need to be mentioned. Then there's always a marketing plan that's important, the team that you have, who you're intending to hire, and the money and milestones that people should mark your work with. An elevator pitch should be simple and should answer three essential questions: the what, the how, and the why of your business idea. I will very briefly overview three known business models that all of us are familiar with: Facebook, Airbnb, and Uber. Facebook essentially gave the elevator pitch as an expanding online directory that connects students, alumni, faculty, and staff through social networks at colleges and universities. Remember, that's how they started off with, which is to connect students, faculty across university. This online directory allows for user connections on the basis of friendship, courses, and social network. That was what Facebook told the investors, and that's what their pitch was, elevator pitch. Airbnb, on the other hand, spoke about book rooms with locals rather than hotels. And Uber said they were fast and efficient on-demand car service. That's what they came to the market with. They said they were looking at professionals in American cities. That was the target audience. They're talking of convenience of a cab in New York City, plus experience of a professional chauffeur. These were the offerings they had for the target market. And they were talking of consumer web and device technology. They had foreseen that sooner or later everybody would be working with smartphones and would be looking for cab service at a call. Optimized fleets and the incentive for the drivers. This was at the service end of their model. And they projected themselves to be the NetJets of car service. Now, how many of you are familiar with any of these companies and what their pitch decks were like? The next is you identify what the problem statement is. The problem statement is who is the identified market you think have the problem. Facebook stated the utility value of what they had already piloted. Now, there's a minor difference that we like to highlight on the fact that Facebook, Airbnb, and Uber, all three of them are different markets, different kind of business models. Facebook had already started and had gained traction in the college environment. So it stated the utility of value of what they had already piloted. They said Facebook user can browse their school social network through SocialNet, course rosters, and advanced engine search. So essentially they said anybody in a college environment can connect with anybody else with common interests, either in terms of their academics or their non-academic interests. And they promised an advanced search engine to identify and connect this. Airbnb, on the other hand, said price is important concern for customers booking travel online. They said hotels leave you disconnected from the city and culture if you're interested in the place that you go to. And they said there's no way to book a room with a local or become a host until Airbnb came into place. So this is what they had offered to the investors and said, this is the place we intend to capture. Uber, on the other hand, stated their problem as aging inefficient tech used for cabs hailed by hand or phone. So essentially, before Uber came in, if anybody wanted cabs, they either had a phone number of the cab services or they would actually hail them down on the road, stand on the road and just wave them down. So Uber said, we don't need to do this anymore. You can have GPS coordination between driver and client, and there'll be no dead time for any drivers who are waiting, because they no longer, they will know who's looking for a cab nearby and they will be able to get there. So there's no dead time for anybody who's a driver and willing to run. And they said digital hail and make the street hail unnecessary. That was their essential offering, a digital hail to make the street hail unnecessary for getting a cab down. Next. The solution. Now, one of the important slides, and this is the problem that you have defined in the earlier one, has to be resolved. And what is it that you're offering as a solution? Define why the solution makes your customers happy. Why is it better than anybody else? Your competition, in fact, and why is it different? All the others exist, why are you different? So Facebook said their solution was to allow a company to reach college students, alumni, faculty, and staff at their library, work, home, dorm rooms, wherever. So they said, hey, anybody who wants to advertise on Facebook can use a traditional horizontal or vertical banner links, and they can have contextual ad placements and identify the most effective placement. So essentially, while Facebook for the people on the platform was just connectivity, they had offered themselves as an excellent marketing platform for anybody who wished to market them. Then Airbnb gave three important reasons for their solution. They said one could save money, one could make money, and one could share culture. Now, if you put Airbnb in the context that they were the market that they were trying to place themselves in, three of these were missing. Save money, you couldn't if you were doing a hotel stay. Make money, you couldn't, even if you had the infrastructure, unless you were a hotel. And you couldn't do it as an individual. And sharing culture was completely non-existent in a hotel environment. So that's what Airbnb offered. Uber emphasized membership for professional, trustworthy clientele. They said a ride that can be hailed digitally, and the app will match client and driver for a guaranteed pickup. So in a sense, what Uber said is they provided a certain discrete element of safety in the ride as well. So that's one of the reasons that Uber, from then till now, they got bad press. I think they've done quite well. So that's one of their hallmark offerings. Next. Yeah. And this is what Facebook gave as their solution, because they said, hey, we launched on February 4th, 2004. And all the way till April 4th, 2004, they had got amazing traction, which allowed them to sell their intra-social networking site as a possible platform for advertisers to advertise. So this was a complete slide that they stuck on as one of the pitch deck in their solutions. Next. Market size. Urvashi, you want to speak on this?
Sure. So market size matters because my investor wants to know what is the size of the market where you will go and sell your product. If the market size is not big enough, that means the business that you do out of that will not be big enough. So it matters because the business has to be big for the investor to get their return on the money. And bigger is generally better. And that is specifically when we are talking in case of the market size. Now, Facebook gave 15 million college students in US who had a purchasing power of $85 billion, and they were all active job seekers. Uber, on the other hand, from 2004 to 2014 data of US, it stated the market size is 4.2 billion US dollar, and which was growing annually. And top four players in that segment, they combined only 22% of the revenues, which means the whole market was vacant for them to capture. Now, if you go to the investor with these kind of figures, investor is definitely interested because you are showing them a promise that your product will sell and this is the size of the market. So even if you are able to capture 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 10% of it, it is good enough because the size is already big. And Airbnb, they stated a total available market of $2 billion, of which serviceable was $560 million, and they stake claim at $84 million. And we all know where Airbnb is today. So and yeah,
go ahead.
tell you.
So this is what Uber Cabs said. They said the overall market was at 4.2 billion annually and growing. And this is one of the things that's a typical top-down data, data that they gathered. This is not data they gathered by themselves on ground. This was data they used, which is available, and they said, hey, this is what the data we're going to play on. We're going to, even if you look at the top 4 players, which is 22% of the revenues, there's still so much more that we can work with, and that's where we want to be. Next, please. Yeah, this is a very, very exciting thing because business model is eventually what you get into deep dive for the subsequent discussions with any investor. An investor is definitely going to look at your business model, and that is what that's where the numbers are going to be. So business model in your pitch deck is a very brief intro and a peephole into what the entire Excel sheet and exercises and the rest of the graph look like. So business model is actually the core of the whole thing, and it needs to talk about how you intend to make money in your business that you have defined. So you essentially should give the top 3 sources of revenue in terms of size or in terms of potential. Now, the 3 ways of looking at this business model: you could be writing a business model without having started or implemented your idea. You could be looking at a business model halfway through, which is what Facebook and Uber did, and Airbnb did to a certain extent, but they were really at just the first step of it. Or you can look at it after you're well into it, you've run it, and you say, hey, I want to expand now, and this is what I'm looking at. So your business model should be talking about the size and potential of your revenue. It could be direct or indirect sources of revenue, and what is defined as direct academically is e-commerce, subscription, and digital goods. Indirect would be advertising, lead generation, and affiliate. So if you look at this very basically, you can identify that Facebook was talking of indirect advertising. That was essentially their business model. Airbnb was talking of e-com. They said, hey, you have a place, you can do it all digitally and use it. You can make money, save money, and experience the culture. Likewise, you have Uber. They also had a different model, which is like on the platform, you can utilize the resources of digitally hailing a cab. Now, Facebook said banners ad can vary, your scope can vary, duration and targeting can vary, banner sizes, link rates based on targeting. This was what they offered as their business model. This is where they make their money from, Facebook. Uber, on the other hand, said every car service transfer averages at $80 per tax, and it goes all the way to $3.5 billion by 210. This were the statistics, indirect and secondary statistics that they had got. And this is what they said. Hey, every ride, if it's $60 plus tax, we can go all the way to 3.5 billion. Airbnb, on the other hand, said we taking 10% of every transaction. They said of the $84 million market share that they was taking claim to, they said average fee at the rate of $25, which is $80 per night over 3 nights, a minimum average stay that one would look at. And they said the projected revenue that they showed was 2.1 billion by 211. And all these 3, we know where they were in 2010, and we now know where they are in 2011. Next, please. Of course, another important thing that they are all looking at, investors, is to see what is the tech platform you're going to be using if you're a technology based business model. Otherwise, are you working on something else? Is there any intellectual property rights there? Are there any patents there around which you're building this whole thing? But whatever it may be that you have, that's what you have to base your entire thing on and sell it. So you got to do it very effectively. Then, like I mentioned earlier, competition. Competition is important. It has to be mentioned and put there on the slide. Your pitch deck must have a slide devoted to competition. Everybody has competition. There's no good hiding it. So don't just put it out there clear for your investors to see that you are looking 360 degrees and you're identifying all your potential competition and risks. Next, marketing plan. That Urvashi, go ahead.
Though we have a dedicated day where we will be talking about the marketing plan, but talking in brief, it should have three things that matter: the volume, the cost, and the conversion. The conversion as in how soon, how fast. Now, marketing plan means essentially how do you plan to market your idea to the world if you get the investment? How do you plan to take your idea to the world, to the end customer? How will people come to know about it? Right? So that is what the marketing plan is. So we have a dedicated day for that, and we will discuss this in great detail on that day.
Yeah. They will obviously be interested in the team that you're proposing to work with. They're looking, if you're talking in terms of deep tech expertise, if you're a technology company, they're looking at if you have entrepreneurs who've sold companies, as in they understand what it takes to start from scratch and build it to a business and usual and a scalable model. If you have people who can do that, that's a skill set any investor would like, because then they know it's going to run and run well. And they're also looking at sales and marketing to say, hey, you know what, how are you going to take it to the market? How are you going to capture the market that you've actually projected to us? And they're also looking at money and milestones that essentially will tell them how much money are you asking, what are you planning to do with the money. Are you intending to do new hires? Are you intending to market, sales, open infrastructure? These are the various headings under which most pitch decks get into details about what they plan to do. It varies from model to model. So it's very important to build this yourself for your pitch deck and not cut, copy, paste it from anywhere else. Next. Yeah, I think we're done with that. So these are all the elements of your pitch deck which need to be out there for your investors. And remember, you can't build it overnight. So keep working on it, and it'll, go through various iterations before you're happy to take it and you're confident enough to pitch it to your investors. I will hand this back to Start Mentor so they can take it further.
Urvashi, you can open the floor for question and answers if the students have any questions. I will take questions from the students, and thereafter we'll switch over to the next case.
I always believe, Major, the most stupid question is the one which is never asked. I said this in the last session also. So our audience is a little either shy or thinks too much.
Well, I think on the day 2 and 3 they had a lot of questions. Probably you guys kind of go through everything so in detail.
Okay, the next one we're going to do a cartoon show. Don't worry. So they'll have lots of questions.
So you brought in a lot of questions, a lot of points out there, including how Uber and so how they identified the market, how they identified the market size, and then kind of build around it or worked around it. One question that I would like to ask, again, I'm being the devil's advocate, asking on behalf of the students.
I hope you're not too much of a devil,
So
but yeah, let's bring it on.
When you're talking about the overall market size, should I take it as if I'm an Indian startup, being only in India? So do I take up the market size in India, or do I look at the global market size?
I would say in today's time and age, I think everybody should look at the global market size. Although when you start, you probably will not run global, but I think there's a very good scope and opportunity given what the times that we are living in. Global market size is what you should look at because it allows you to scope it better and plan better. So yeah, global market size any day. That's what you should factor in.
Okay. Good. Now, you also made a mention of, when you talk about the market size and then what is the, share, the piece of the pie you're looking at, whether it is 5%, 10%. is there an exercise to arrive at it, to saying, okay, I'm going to be targeting, let's say, 3% in the first year or 5% in the second year? How does
Absolutely.
that
That's
part
that's
work?
that's one of the reasons why I said you can't build your pitch deck overnight. You can't see your investor tomorrow morning and do a last minute tonight. You should be building it over a period of time. And the way you arrive at your size is to get a sense of, hey, you know what? The two ends to this. One is your market, which is your global market, and one is your business idea, which you're trying to implement. You start running it and you see what kind of sound you get from the market, how the traction develops. And once you know it, you can more or less have a good idea of where you can go in what period of time, provided your objective, like Urvashi said, don't get obsessed with your idea. You should be able to step back and look at it objectively and say, hey, you know what, this is the plan, this is what I've achieved, this is the gap. Maybe the gap is on account of so many other reasons. And like we've always said, money is not the gap, money is not the most important gap, is just another resource. So if you have a plan that allows you to get to the market that you want to capture, you know what kind of time it takes, and you can get it from secondary data and all. Today, I mean, it's a lot easier than what it was 20 years back. So I think people should be able to do it.
So the other pertinent question is, at what stage, as as an aspiring entrepreneur or as an early stage startup, do I start working on my pitch deck? Students here, probably some of them must be having thoughts and ideas of starting on their own. Is that the right time for them to start working on a pitch deck, or do they launch and give themselves a few days, few weeks, maybe a few months, and then start
Look,
working
one
on
of
it?
the most important things I always think as an entrepreneur is you wear multiple hats at the same time. So while you have your pitch deck, which is built, you can build it like now and keep working on it. That's how you iterate it. Likewise, you also build your business plan. You build your business plan and keep working on it and iterate it. And you run your model, whichever way your business model run is alongside, and see that all three of them sync together. That syncing will not happen because you are making it sync. That syncing will happen because you have put that time, effort, and energy to get your pitch deck, to get your business idea model and the idea working to sync. So you do it simultaneously at the same time. So even if you're a student and you're working with ideas, it's a good idea to build your pitch deck. That is not the deck you might go to the investor with maybe 3 years down the line, but it's a good idea to say, hey, that's my roadmap to getting there. So yeah, sure, go ahead, build it.
We also see, when it comes to startups, mostly it is the engineering students who are at the forefront, and not very many of them probably understand, the number crunching that would go into or how to do it. What should they do? What should they be doing? How would they arrive at numbers?
One thing I always believe with numbers, matlab, after seeing the gamut of numbers that all of us see, or you would have seen as well, is like the simple, the better. If whatever your numbers may be, whatever your business model is, whatever your idea is, if I, as a complete stranger who has no idea of it, can understand it through your numbers, it's you like 80% there. You don't have to worry about it. But if your numbers are not understandable by a next person who has absolutely no idea, then I think it deserves a deep dive, and you have to make it very, very simple. And we always, I mean, like we've always mentioned, there's a little element of ego if you're an entrepreneur, that ego which says that, you know what, I understand it, but you don't. But as long as you're able to explain it to the other person and say, hey, this is the way it works, and the numbers are simple and anybody can understand, and at the end of the day, it's just a calculation, whether subtraction, multiplication, whatever it may be. So as long as you can do that and understand the numbers, I think you'll fly. So
I
keep it
mean,
simple.
think of students, who are in colleges and they are trying to put a pitch deck, or at least even, do some number crunching.
Yeah.
Would it be advisable for them to reach out to somebody like Emil and say, guys, we are trying to put this together. Would you be able to help us?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The
When
areas that areas probably that they have not taken into consideration while number crunching.
Yeah, absolutely. It helps to have anybody who professionally does it, and we definitely do it professionally for lots of our clients, and that's one of our main tasks. It helps because we are external, so we are able to look at it objectively and bring it down to the basics without having a lot of, the other baggage involved, which says we're not possessive about the idea. So yes, definitely do come to us.
Now, one thing that students would always, which is on top of their mind is we don't have a lot of money.
Yeah.
Would organization like Emil and Askmentor, would they do or provide us some support or service which doesn't cost us, or at least doesn't cost us a bomb?
Yeah, definitely. like Askmentor does it for your clientele, we also offer that. We say yes, but what we probably do better is like handhold you through the process. So it allows you to understand it and do it better. It's not like you give it out, you outsource it to somebody, they do it, and you give it back, and you're trying to deal with it. So we definitely handhold you through the process. Yeah, Askmentor and ML, yeah, that's what we do.
Thank you. So, Reference Globe, it's open to the students if they have queries, if they want to type in their queries into the chat box. The two mentors will take it on. In the meantime, if that is not there, we'll give few seconds to them to think over, and then I will rope in the second guest for the evening. And if there are questions, both Urushi and Arunti are here. They would take on your questions. Not a problem
Sure.
with that. I just quickly, before I bring Shubham in, I also want to remind the students that you also have an opportunity to, present your idea to the jury of this event, which will be, evaluated by the jury, and this idea that get picked up will be virtually incubated by Askmentor. So, students, go ahead if you have ideas, work with them, and at the end, we'll also share email IDs with you where you can send in your pitch deck, or you can send in your ideas.
Yeah.
So let me now welcome Shubham. Shubham is the founder and director of Cubic Online. So let me start by asking Shubham to explain what Cubic Online is all about.
Thanks a lot, Major. So Cubic Online is an edutech platform. Now, edutech platform, I'm specifying edutech because we are not edtech. There's this term edtech floating around in the market right now. We are an edutech because we are here to empower all the unorganized sector of the education, which is, creating a void in the country, because of which people who are based out of tier 2, tier 3 cities, they are not able to get out of that zone, or that stagnated zone. And the complete education system has come to a halt, right? Especially post-pandemic, the kind of FOMO that is there in the market, fear of missing out phenomenon. We want to work out on that problem, and we want to solve that problem for tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities. We want to upskill all the education sector, which is, lagging with respect to that edtech literacy, which we like to call. And we want to empower them with those qualities that would help them scale up their businesses as well. So we are here not to eliminate local tutors, local coaching centers, or organizational institutions, but we are here to complement them along with us. So you can say that we are the OYO and OLO of education currently that our model is working on specifically. That's why I specifically like to call ourselves that edutech and not edtech.
And in the process, you're also helping build micro entrepreneurs in each area, isn't it? Area wise.
Yes. So we are trying to, build and even mentor micro entrepreneurs. In this process, obviously, it comes as a byproduct. But not only in education sector, but there are people who are approaching us in various other sectors who are saying that, we can take ahead this portfolio of things that you have in our area, and we can take it ahead. Can you just help us in doing digital marketing, or you help us in learning the LMS system or the operation system? We are working on multiple fronts in developing and helping micro entrepreneurs grow from various parts of the cities currently.
So, as this is a student entrepreneur program, the idea of calling you here was to share your journey as an entrepreneur, and how did you, in the last 3-4 years, how did you come up build this whole program? Let's start with the idea itself. How did the idea originate? What was the what was the trigger which led to creation of Cubic Online?
Right. So to rope you all into this idea and how I got my eureka moment and everything, I would just take you back. There would be a flashback. So flashback would start from let's suppose 2015, when I was elected as the General Secretary of Entrepreneurship Cell in my college. So my journey in entrepreneurship started from there, because at that point, to be honest, I did not have much knowledge about entrepreneurship for that matter. But then I saw a lot of startups coming out of my college, and they're getting funded and they're taking it to the next level, right? So this was my first learning and my first exposure. And during that time, I had decided that I want to do something of my own. I didn't know what I want to do, but I wanted to do something of my own. Now I'll take you 6 years back more, right? So there was my mentor, Mr. Vaibhav Vajpayee, who is currently the managing director of my edutech, Cubic Online, and we are working together. So he was my mentor for mathematics, and during this lockdown, 1.5 years back, we connected, and I was working in edutech field, and he was also working in education sector since 30 odd years. So he was like, Shubham, I've been working in this sector for 30 odd years, and again, I'm able to see the same problems being replicated. I mean, the same problems are again and again circling back around the student. I have identified this set of problems. Can you help us? I mean, take it ahead together. So at that point, he had this idea. We got in touch, we discussed it, we brainstormed it for a long time, and we came up with this idea accordingly. So it started with a different thing, but then somehow when we, went on doing the iterations and went on doing the improvisations, we really understood the pain point in the country that, okay, we don't want to eliminate the local competition for that matter. I don't want to use the word competition. Let's suppose if there is someone who is really skilled, he is in XYZ city or town, and I as an edtech only want to promote my own courses. I don't want to promote his courses. That would be really bad on our part and really bad on his part. This would crumble this. I mean, the whole system comes spiraling down. I mean, local people are more comfortable with taking tuitions or with taking coaching from local people. Why to eliminate them? Rather, let's just empower them and just standardize the way that they are giving education. Let's give them that edtech literacy. Let's give them that software technology platform, and let's help them out with this thing. So that is how we progressed with a very niche and naive idea to this. I mean, what you can say, an aggregator or old OEO model, which we like to call for ourselves.
No, definitely. You're empowering the local tutors. And in some ways, the way I would like to see this is as building micro entrepreneurs. Locally. So, is my understanding correct that your mentor is currently your co-founder? Is that correct?
Yes. So he's the founder and I'm the co-founder. Yeah.
Co-founder. So how's the relationship working out? Because having your mentor as your co-founder, what are the areas where you have, how do you work? If you want to, if you can share your relationship.
Yeah. So it's kind of the perfect duo that you call. It's like the partnership of Sachin Tendulkar, Virendra Sehwag going onto the field, and Virendra Sehwag going at one speed and Sachin Tendulkar just steering India to the victory. So it's perfect because he has this phenomenal experience in this education sector, right? Across the fields like JEE, NEET. He has even mentored a lot of AIR1, that is All India Ranks 1 in the country. And just to break the ice, he has also mentored one of the most prominent CEOs of the country, Mr. Bhavesh Agrawal. So he was his tutor for maths for JEE, and he had gotten into IIT Bombay. So he has this experience, and I have this, young entrepreneurial instinct in me. So it fits in and complements very nicely. And as a matter of fact, since he's my mentor, and since I am his student, I was his student, it's a very frank relationship. Anywhere, we have difference in opinion, we come together, we brainstorm it. You can't call it difference of opinion actually, but if you call like he has one thing to say and I have some other thing to say, we'll come down, just sit down and we'll get to a conclusion. It's as simple as that. It's very smooth actually. Once you know the person working together, it's very smooth to work with the co-founders.
You use a very good analogy of cricket, where Sehwag and Sachin, where one was experienced, the other was the quick fire, come in and we get to see that even today, in cricket. So coming to when you decided to start, the next thing is getting a fund for it. I'm sure the initial days would have been, or the weeks or the year would have been bootstrap. Right. How did you go about doing that task? If, for the benefit of the students, if you can share, how did you bootstrap the moment when you decided to start?
So, Major, basically, before getting into this bootstrapping stage and starting the model that we had planned, we had a contingency plan as well. So the first part was like, obviously, we had our own bit of investment that we were supposed to put in and just start the process completely, all the founders coming in together. But our contingency plan was about the product that we already had developed, or the courses or the program. Now, luckily, unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know what to call that, but because of the pandemic, everything went online, right? So in case of education sector, there was a reversal trend of, the business that was growing up exponentially. because education sector was something that had completely gone online, right? So that helped us to bootstrap our business much better and plan out things much better for the future, as a matter of fact. So yeah, I mean, bootstrapping is very important. I mean, you should really, I mean, for every sector, it's not going to be the case where you're going to see a tremendous amount of revenue in your, what you say, because of the pandemic situation. It's going to be the complete opposite case of that, right? So let's suppose you have that X amount that you're going to use for your initial bootstrapping stage. You should be really sure about the resources that you're going to use it for, the team that you're going to implement to execute whatever models or whatever plans you have, and just micro and macro manage things properly so that everything fits into that budget that you have.
Interesting. Now coming to the, today we're looking at the pitch deck part of it.
Right.
Did you have to make one?
Yeah.
And do you approach investors, be it angel investor or VC firm? How's been the experience, interacting with them?
Right. So yes, making a pitch deck is a, I mean, continuous perpetual process. So we started way back because even if we didn't have plans to raise funds at that point, we knew that somewhere down the line we're going to scale up our business. So let's suppose right now we are, let's suppose in 50 odd cities. We knew that somewhere down the line we need to expand it to 300 odd cities, and for that we're going to need funds. So rather than just, as ma'am had rightly mentioned, overnight pitch decks cannot be prepared. It's a continuous process. You have to keep on reiterating and go about stages. So we started way back in creation of a pitch deck, and yes, we have been interacting with a lot of, I mean, angel investors and VC firms and VC, I mean, venture capitalists for that matter. So every experience is different, but one common experience that I would like to share with you is that you have to be brutally honest. Please do not try to fake anything with respect to your pitch or with respect to the figures that you're showing. Please, if your idea is something, your model is something that you truly believe in, if you think it can scale up, there's nothing to be scared of and there's nothing to fake out in that, right? Even if someone doesn't believe in you, trust me, when people like Oyo and Ola have been rejected so many times before they got their first funding, so there's nothing to lose of your heart on. But be brutally honest about your pitch and about your business model and the number crunching game that you're showing them.
Well, that's an interesting, that's really important that it's not necessary that when you, approach an angel investor or any investor for that matter, first time you would get through.
Right.
There are chances that, you get rejected and
Right.
you have to go multiple doors before, you knock multiple doors before you actually get invested. So yes, now with that, I would like to invite back Urvashi and Arundhati. If there are any questions, they will take up. Also, I'll request Shubham to you to stay put in case there are questions that you can also answer from your experience as an entrepreneur. So, ReferenceGlobe, over to you. If there are questions, from the students, the team, the panel would be ready to take.
Later, I think there's a question over here addressed to me. So I think this girl has asked it. So let's.
Yeah, I think Shubham, it is for you. How did you get motivated? Yeah.
Yeah, so motivation
Great, so
part is another part of the story. Yeah. Yeah. So, Ishika, right? To define motivation, I'll tell you that I had the most prominent B schools at that time in my hand. I had this option of going to them and just continuing with my MBA or going for a startup when the pandemic and the lockdown was setting in. Pretty scary, right? The parents are going to freak out, your relatives going to freak out, and your peers going to freak out and call you you're crazy and everything. But no, I believed in the idea. I thought that this is something that I really need to work on, and I think this is going to be good and it's going to create an impact. So yeah, one thing I'll tell you, sometimes you'll feel that it's superficial or log bas bolne ke liye bolte hain, but if you think you can create an impact, you can create long-term impact in the society, you should definitely go for the startup. There's no need for motivation. It would naturally come down to you. Yeah, so that's it.
So we will take, if there are any questions, now is the time to ask. Otherwise, I'll let you once again thank my panel. Thank you, Urvashi, thank you, Arundhati, and thank you, Shubham. And we hope to see you again